I'm always loving to see what happens on Facebook or YouTube with what scene they capture when we go live. So now I'm going to be curious about whether they got me doing this or you doing this or this.
Yeah, and let's be clear. We're not giving any symbols.
No.
There's no symbolism to anything we're doing. So if somebody wants to pick that apart, we're not. I'm not giving it. When I do this, boop, I've been doing that for
years.
I've been an adult, and it's just, what's up? There's no symbolism there. And if somebody wants to say it is, maybe I just need to do this, start doing this.
Yeah, we can do that. That's the right symbol right there.
All right. So from here on out, I'm going to change. So I just caught myself. So, but
anyway,
I'm like, maybe there's some symbolism.
No symbolism.
And this is the 16th show. 16th, not what? So 1/6. And by the way, we're so technologically savvy that we just got to use our fingers.
I could flash a 16 on the screen.
Or I could go get my abacus.
You know what? If anybody's ever seen me do the I love you sign, it's not the devil's horns. All right. There's the difference between the two. This is I love you in sign language. Universal American Sign Language. That's I love you. The devil's horns, you put your thumb in. I'm not doing that. And then Jesus, which most people should see that in sign language, is where you touch. Well, let me get in the camera. You touch both hands. That's Jesus. That's what Jesus is. And so, yep. And Bible, well, book is this, but Bible is where you touch your hands and then do that. That's the Bible. So if you can see me do that, or if you see me do this, that means amen.
So if I was deaf and you were doing that, that would be, I would interpret it as such.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. So that's the only symbolism I'm offering is what I know in sign language. And then, what's that?
I'm offering some symbolism. I stand corrected.
You have your KC hat on.
I have my KC on, and here's what I know. A true fan is still a true fan when they get defeated. Even though we're defeated, we will bounce back.
Oh, I guess there is a little bit more.
I'm wearing this out of allegiance to my team. And I'm not even going to say it was a fix. Even when the refs have 8 penalties on one team and 1 on the other, I'm not going to say fix.
No,
I'm not going to go there.
Hey, this is what I say, GJ, and this is what I think every one of us.
There's some symbolism right there.
I got questions. That's what I tell everybody. So
yes, it's cold in my house because my heater's going out.
Hey,
and I got the repairman coming.
Anyway, I got questions. That's what I say to everybody. I have questions, and those of you who are watching right now, you have questions, which is why you're watching this. ENDTIMES Chat with GJ and Dan. So you saw what was on the description. Hopefully, what we're going to talk about today. We have no idea where it's going to take us, but we do kind of want to just jump in so we don't lose a lot of people watching.
Yeah,
because they're thinking,
what does the Super Bowl have anything to do with?
Well, let's talk about what the Super Bowl
or signs or symbolism. What does that got to do with the Super Bowl?
Well, that's why we kind of segued into that, right? This is what we're going to talk about.
So usually we ask how you're doing, how I'm doing. We're doing good.
Doing good.
By the way, I watched some of last week's episode, and I'm like, I looked like I was half asleep the whole time. So this week, I'm very vibrant and very alive, and I'm pissed off from yesterday's defeat. Yes.
That's real. That's real.
That is real. And I'm like, what does it matter in my life? It matters nothing whether they won or lost, even if other than I can wear this with victory. So anyway, I know we're living in victory, so let's start from right there.
Let's start from right there. Well, I'm not sure how many people around the world watch the Super Bowl, but I do know that the Super Bowl is probably one of the most internationally watched shows or games on the planet. Every single year, the Super Bowl was watched by billions of people.
Yeah, I think
And
outside of the soccer or football, World Cup soccer, that is the most watched event in non-soccer.
And there's another statistic about the Super Bowl, which I will mention shortly. I don't want to get into that just yet, but I do want to get there about the Super Bowl. But a lot of people talk about the Super Bowl in the commercials. A lot of people talk about the Super Bowl in the halftime show. So let's just start there. I'm not going to go through and say this is my favorite, this is your favorite. That's not what this is about. I want you to know that when we say the Super Bowl is the most watched, other than soccer or actual football in the World Cup, this Super Bowl is literally one of the most watched around the planet. You have billions of people watching. You have all these commercials. It's why these companies spend millions and millions of dollars to get their advertising.
$5 million for a minute, 1 minute ad.
And the most expensive ad is the ad that happens after halftime show. They actually jack that one up because that's the most watched, because people are usually there watching the halftime show. But so let's just talk about the ads. And guess what? Because of the miracles of technology, I can actually pull up on the screen and share so that people know where I'm getting it and where it's coming from. No symbolism. You can look it up yourself, and I definitely would ask everyone to look it up themselves. But here's the top commercials that YouTube, love YouTube or hate them. These are YouTube has billions and billions of users, and people watch a lot of this stuff on YouTube. So the number one YouTube watched commercial from the Super Bowl was Amazon's Alexa's Body featuring Michael B. Jordan. Now, I'm not going to play it for you because this is a family show.
By the way, they use technology and imposed my body on him and then darkened it a little bit.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, just throwing it out there. This is Michael B. Jordan. And this particular commercial, which was the most watched, most popular commercial from the Super Bowl yesterday, I'll just put it out there. It's about a woman who is having sexual feelings for Alexa, and she embodies Alexa in Michael B. Jordan. Now, she has a husband in this. There are coworkers watching her kind of pine after a picture of him, because every time she thinks of Alexa, she thinks of him. It is probably one of the most sexually charged commercials that I've seen on the Super Bowl, and it's by Amazon, number one. Number two was the Jeep commercial. Probably one of the most talked about because Bruce Springsteen was on it. 70-some-year-old Bruce Springsteen, and everyone knows where he stands on a lot of things. But at the very end, it says the Reunited States of America. Here's what I want to share with you. If you've been watching any of the news recently, and I shouldn't say this, GJ, but I'm going to say it anyway. If you've been watching any news recently, and you have a heart and you have a brain, you're going to see that there is some weird things happening with the word unity. You can they'll say, "Oh, let's unify," but only if you agree with what I believe. And that is probably one of the most. It's probably one of the most huge signposts that I can even remotely talk about from these commercials. It's a signpost. When people talk about unity, but they say you have to believe my way in order to unify, then that's not unity. That's somebody trying to say that you need to compromise your beliefs and your Christianity and your relationship with Jesus in order to be able to abide with what one man says. Jesus had a whole different kind of unity that he talked about, and we can talk about that a little bit later. But let me just get to a couple more. Then Cadillac comes out with their new hands-free car, and so if anybody's seen the news, they say that by 2030, at least in California or the United States, every car should be electric. Well, there's another sign right there we can talk about. And then there's Uber Eats, where Wayne's World reached way back to, what was this, the 80s or 90s? I don't remember now. They come in and they talk about Uber Eats, which, by the way, is another conglomerate that we can talk about in another setting. And then this one right here, Paramount, was number 5. So the top 5 have something to do with every aspect of your life, right? Alexa, which is now going to answer because I'm actually saying something. That particular unit is in your house, and you use it for a lot of things. You rely on it for a lot of things. Then you have the Unity conversation. Then you have electric cars. Then you have to eat, so you might as well use Uber Eats. And then you have Paramount coming out with this series of commercials during the Super Bowl, which, in my opinion, is all about staying at home and gorging yourself with fantasy TV and movies. That's what they're projecting. And so for me, a lot of these commercials that became the most popular yesterday had a lot of signposts, GJ. And tell me what you think about some of them. If I take this off the screen,
does it only show the top 5, or is there others there?
There's others. You go down and get Disney Plus's Winter Soldier and the Falcon movie coming out.
All right, keep going. Eddie Murphy,
Anheuser-Busch, Doritos.
Yeah, and Doritos. That was with Matthew McConaughey.
Yep.
Okay, keep going, because I'm.
Oh wait, about Matthew McConaughey, a lot of people know that he's come out and said that, hey, you can't speak. That he's been silenced and he's been bashed for actually having an opinion opposite of what's going on in the country. And it was interesting to me that at the end of that commercial, when he ate the puffed Dorito, he actually was puffed up, but he was locked inside of a box. Just want to point that out to everybody. There are some things we should be watching out for. And then Chipotle was number 10.
All right. Well, then there was a couple others. So first of all, there was symbolism in almost every one of those commercials. That's one of the things that I noticed. And somebody can say, well, not all of them, and maybe there was a few that weren't. However, I believe there was, even the Toyota one. And we're not here to talk about any of these brands or whatever. It's like the use of the symbolism and technology. So technology was used in every one of them. And like the Paramount one, it was all CGI. I mean, it had the real people, but they're obviously in a green screen set, on top of the Paramount Mountain. So technology was used there. Who's the one kid? I'm saying kid, but he's a grown man. So now I sound old when I say that. The dude from the Brothers, he's part of the Brothers band in Three Brothers, and he came out and was pitching. I think it was like insurance, but he comes out and he turns into a real old man all of a sudden. Oh,
yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah, they actually showed literally CGI of somebody talking and his face changing right during the commercial.
Yeah, so I mean, forget about him or what the thing was just the use of technology. So that is a big signpost. And one of the things that I was reading this morning is out of the book of Daniel, where there's a lot of prophecy in his visions of the future. And of course, when he had that, none of this existed. And even going back 20 years, a lot of this technology, I mean, we watched something recently, and it was an old TV movie. And it was like, I remember when they came out, they're like, oh my gosh, that's like newest technology. And now it's like, that sucks. So technology, all these had them. Matthew McConaughey, he was this flat figure. And then all of a sudden he becomes poof, and then he, becomes, the regular human being. But they use technology the whole time. And then of course he's locked up. So there's some symbolism there. And somebody say, well, no, that just makes sense with the storyline. Maybe, maybe not.
Maybe. Questions. These are just questions.
Yeah. The thing that I saw over and over was the technology. And then who's the one guy? He was like in a movie, and he slides down the rope. He gets on the yacht, and he's got his double, the body double.
Oh, yeah.
I forget his name. Actually, I played golf with him. Wasn't in his foursome. He was right in front of me. He's a really good golfer, by the way. So he comes in. So it was like, I don't remember what they're pitching on the ad. It was just the use of technology, or the use of, hey, a body double, whatever. So there's a lot of things floating out there right now where what's real, what's not real, what's technology, what's not technology. Is it photoshopped? Is it in a green screen? Is it on a stage? I mean, it's amazing right now. and I'm just going to go through this really quick. So the 5 things that really hit home with me today when I was reading, and this all came from Jimmy Evans out of Gateway Church in Dallas, and he wrote a really good book called The Tipping Point. So if you haven't got that book, The Tipping Point, I don't get any money for pitching the book, but it's really good.
But here it is. This is what it looks like right here.
Yeah, and I have that book as well, and here I'm surrounded by 2,000 books right here. And so if I say a book is really good, I guarantee it's really good because I read a lot, and there's a lot of books. I can't read the whole book. I can only read parts of it, or I'm just gathering 1 or 2, key aspects of the book, whatever the topic is. That was a book I read cover to cover in 2 days. And some people might say I was a slow reader because it took me 2 days, but I read it in 2 days. That rarely happens. So the 5 things he talks about: the existence of Israel, the retaking of Jerusalem, travel is now global, our technological reach is global, and global financial control is possible. And so there's a lot we can talk about on the financial things on many fronts just since last week. So to me, the technology that exists, it's amazing what can happen. And then the other thing is, like the Super Bowl, that was being played globally. There was a time, like when I was stationed in Okinawa, Japan, long time ago, as a U.S., and I was a U.S. Army living on a Marine base, is they would record it, they would have it live, but there was parts of it that wasn't live, and so we had to watch it, and we hardly ever got the full thing. And like TV shows were like 6 months from behind, and sometimes a year. So what they were watching here currently, we were getting a year, 6 months to a year behind. So now you can watch it. You can go on the internet, watch it live, and so that is a prophecy that's been fulfilled. The traveling global, that's been going on for some time. And these were all back into Daniel's, dreams and visions. So I'll shut up right there. Because I sort of hijacked what you said and now I've taken it somewhere else. But back to the...
No, not at all. I think it's a great segue because we're talking about the symbolism and the signposts that we're seeing even in the most watched Super Bowl ads. It's just evident. And here's the thing that I wanted to say is that it's just blatantly in your face what's happening. And if you're a Christian, if you're a believer, and you're out there, you're watching this, and your heart is open to what God wants to show you, then what you're seeing is the blatant in your face sinfulness that's being projected out, literally projected. That's what they used to call it, right? When you had a movie screen, you projected it. Now it's on TV, you project it. It's being projected in your face, and your kids are watching it. You're watching it. People are watching it. Now, I'm not saying you should just throw out your TV and your computer, because I believe we need to stay aware of what's going on around us. But I'm saying we have to see these things. We have to open up our eyes. And the next thing this is the last thing we'll talk about Super Bowl, because we have a lot of other things to cover, is that the halftime show. Now, throughout the years, I have literally watched the halftime show mainly out of curiosity about what's the next thing they're going to throw out at you. Like if you look back all the way back to Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake, that whole wardrobe malfunction thing was just...
I have this on. I got it, so you can't malfunction.
You can't malfunction your wardrobe. That whole wardrobe malfunction thing, if you believe that was not staged, then I'm not really sure if there's anything I can do to convince you. But ever since then, and then you fast forward to the Beyonce Super Bowl halftime show, which was 100% sexual and also had a lot of satanic elements. Then you talk about J-Lo, Jennifer Lopez and Shakira. I mean, that was so sexual on the stage, and it was being projected around the world, and everyone's watching that halftime show. And then last night you have James Corden. Now, I'm not sure if anybody's aware of James Corden in The Weeknd, but he's pretty open about his own religious leanings. And he spent $7 million of his own money to make that show happen the way he wanted it to happen. I was reading about that this morning on one of the stories that I was looking into. So double check to see if that's right. I mean, if you want to correct me on that, that's fine. But the fact that he spent $7 million of his own money to make that show happen the way he wanted it to happen, it says a lot about that Super Bowl halftime show. So all I say is this. To me, there was clear symbolism happening in that halftime show. I don't care if you disagree with me or not. Not you, GJ, but anybody watching this, if you disagree with me and GJ on this thing, that's fine. It doesn't really matter to me. But at the very beginning, he's at the top of the Super Bowl stadium arena, and then all of a sudden there's just
talking about The Weeknd.
The Weeknd, yeah, James Corden. He's at the very top of
James
the Super
Corden
Bowl
was
stage.
not The Weeknd.
Huh? No, he was.
Oh.
James Corden was the singer that was singing last night, and he's from the Weeknd.
I thought The Weeknd, the black guy, was the guy singing.
Yeah, that's James Corden.
No.
No?
No.
Well, then what was I looking at last? Well, thanks for correcting me.
That is
whoever the guy was.
James Corden is the guy that is the comic. He is one of the characters that was on the Paramount ad.
Oh, gotcha.
He has his own TV show. He's a comic, very talented guy, English, British guy.
Yes, I know you're talking about. He was the one that questioned why he had to climb up the mountain.
Correct.
Gotcha.
So The Weeknd, that's the guy, the black guy that was singing, the main attraction for halftime. And he got his name The Weeknd because he was in high school, and then he left on a Friday for the weekend and never returned. That's how he supposedly got his name. I don't know anything more about it. Never knew anything about him till the Super Bowl. And if he was the one, so I believe that's who you're referring to.
Yes, thank you. And this is why we work, because we can make sure we can fact check each other, rate lie. So
everything you said about Corden, cancel, scratch
it. The lead singer that was there from the weekend last night spent $7 million of his money to make that halftime show happen the way he wanted it. Yes, thank you, Danya. She just looked it up. His name is Abel, which is very curious. Very curious name. So in any event, this halftime show, if you watched it, you saw this character coming down out of the sky, and it was kind of eerily backlit, and it his eyes lit up red, and he's coming down, and then behind him, there's this choir of looks like demonic looking characters with these red eyes, all lifting their hands and worshiping this creature that was being lowered from the top of the arena.
And red typically means evil, blood, or hell.
Yes. And then the stage completely opens up with this bright light, and then out walks the lead singer of the weekend, whose name is Abel. Thank you, Danya. And he's from Canada, just so anybody wants to find out. And that...
Why are we having all these foreigners come in and sing when we got all these Americans that can sing for an American Super Bowl?
I don't know. That's another question.
On anybody. I love people from all over, so don't. And we have a lot of people that are in Canada, Philippines, Middle East, whatever, that watch us. So
yes,
no disrespect,
none whatsoever. God bless you guys.
Could get an American to sing.
I don't know. I don't know why, but that's a topic for another show. Anyway, let me get to the point here. The point is that with that, and then this dancing on the field with, it looked like they were wearing jock straps, in my opinion. I have no idea what that was all about. But then that entire symbolism referred me back to another concert that the Weeknd had done that somebody actually posted an iPhone video of, where during one of the songs, there was this big flash, and right before the flash, the word Satan shows up on their LED wall. So to me, that whole reason why he spent all that money was to be able to present what he feels everyone should be worshiping. Now, these are just questions. Jeff Anderson, it's good to see you. These are just questions, okay? I'm not saying anything about this guy from the weekend other than the fact that, to me, the spirit feeling I received I believe from the Holy Spirit, just really checked my spirit and said, this is not from God. And literally the entire world of billions of people are watching this halftime show and watching this creature come down that's being worshipped by all these other people. And it, GJ, that's all I can say about it, because actually I'm that disturbed by that halftime show, and I've been disturbed by ones before, but to me that was probably the most blatant I've ever seen.
Well, as I shared with you, I had the pregame jitters because my team was playing, and after the first quarter, I was like, I started getting numb, because at the end of first quarter, I mean, it was anybody's game, according to the scoreboard. And then all of a sudden, there was a few commercials, and then as each commercial started going on, my spirit just started getting heavy and numb. And then, of course, at the halftime show, I was really watching it to evaluate what symbolism was going on, and it was so blatant. And then behind them, they had all these words that were lit up, in the lights.
Oh yeah, forgot about that.
And so I was reading those, and I'm like, every one of them had some type of meaning. And so going back to the Janet Jackson debacle, the Flash, that was for shock, and they got shocked, and they talked about it. I mean, it worked. And then from that point on, to me, that was really a turning point, because from that point on, each one became more and more in your face, whether it was very sexual, demonic, or whatever. And in each year, it's gotten more and more and more. And of course, there's a lot more with the red lights and how it ended, and just that eerie feeling. And you can say, oh, it was just a production or whatever. That's what Satan does. He shows enough, but what's happening is the arrogance of Satan is starting to show, and people are being more and more boisterous. And then we go back to your comment about the commercial reunify. I mean, yeah, I was like, where's this commercial going? And by the way, supposedly that little church is only like 30 miles from my hometown, where my mom and dad, live. Well, I guess now my mom and my brother. So they're very close to where I spent my teenage years. So anyway, I was like, where's that going? And I'm like, there was symbolism in that. And then, somebody said, well, that was really good, really bad. Here's what I know. They're putting it out now. There's a meaning to it. Or they're using technology, whether they know it or not, that is back to what Daniel talked about, in his dreams when he was alive. And I don't remember at what point he was alive on the earth, but thousands of years ago. And that's happening right before our eyes as well. So prophecy is being brought out right out in the open. And it also says in the Bible that it will become more and more blatant. And then and we've talked on here many, many times, what is truth becomes lies, and what are lies become truth. I mean, yeah, you watch any news channel now. I mean, it's like whatever they're talking, just shut up, because whatever you're talking about is a lie. I mean, that's how bad it's gotten. And I'm not the only one that sees it. And I think it's happening more and more with more and more people. And it's like, okay, what's really true? What's really real? And the only thing that I can stand 100% on is that I know Jesus Christ is real. And the only truth that we have is right there. There is other truth. It's all a derivative of Jesus Christ himself. And that is the only way to our God the Father. That we can bank on. And the other things is just part of the prophecy. And it goes back to, we're seeing the signposts right before our eyes. I've been saying from the first week, we're in the 2-minute warning. And I'm not the only person saying that. We're not prophesying here. We're just saying, look at the signs, look at what's happening. And then you can say, well, you can dismiss it. But that's where they got you. When you go to the dismissive, perspective on things, or I'm sick and tired of it. It's negative. I don't want to see it or hear about it.
Well, kind of wrapping up that conversation of Super Bowl, and Jeff made a great comment in the comments.
By the way, I still love the Chiefs. I just wanted to, in case I didn't make that point out there.
Yeah, and I was actually rooting for him yesterday. But just like Jeff said, the NFL's purpose has never been to glorify God ever. And that is 100% true. Whatever the NFL's purpose is, I don't know. And actually, frankly, I don't care. What I do understand is that I do care about what they project that is against what the scriptures say. And I know that, Jeff, you agree with me on that. And so do you, GJ. But I do take issue with what they project. And what they're projecting is definitely something that if the entire world is seeing that, then it's impacting the entire world that's watching it. So a couple other signposts, and then you had a couple of things you want to share too, but a couple of the things I was looking into today, GJ, was, did you know that there was a mouse infestation going on in Australia right now?
I did not know that.
So apparently
things I don't like: snakes
and mice
and rats.
Well, I actually have, and
I'm getting the heebie-jeebies from that.
Well, good. I'm going to show a video of exactly what's going on. I want everybody to see it. But let me just tell the story as I'm looking it up. So there are literally Australia every, 10 years. You can check me on the fact. I don't know what the years are, but every few years they have an infestation of mice in Australia. Usually comes after a rain. They all come out looking for food. And mice, they can literally have up to 9 to 10 little mouse babies every single time they get together and do what they're going to do. And so they're exponentially, they can grow. But this year on record is the worst mice plague that they've had on record. So just for your sake, I'm going to just share this, GJ, because I think you need to see it.
I don't want to see it, but
you can just close your eyes.
I watched the Super Bowl, so I guess I can take it today.
Check this out, man. Somebody's in their car outside their house, and that's what they're seeing running around in their yard. And that's just one of the videos. They had another one where this woman opened up this, she opened up her garage or a silo, and all these mice just started rushing out in waves, just waves and waves of mice. And it kind of made me think about the plagues of Egypt, because not only is Australia dealing with that, but East Africa has been dealing with this locust plague for years.
Yes.
And that locust plague is really taking over. And then Somalia is suffering widespread flooding and a massive food crisis right now, and they have been. So just three major world events that I take a look at and I say, are these potential signposts? I think they possibly could be. So I don't know if anybody else saw that, but and then I also found this one page. I won't show it, but I found this one page. What's that?
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I found this one page that it shows all the volcanoes in the world, and then which ones are active right now. And it's crazy to see how many are actually active currently. So that's all I'll say. I have one other thing, but I'll save it for later. But you had a couple things you wanted to share too. I want to make sure we get to those.
Well, the existence of Israel. I'm just gonna go through my notes, the 5 that I had today. And typically my notes are like this. It's whatsoever on my hand, and usually I don't have a whole lot. So
I got a whole page.
I rely on Dan. He's the detail homework guy. Actually, I do a lot of homework. It's so impactful now. I mean, it's like it goes right here. So the existence of Israel, which obviously it formally happened in 1948, and May 14th, 1948. There's more to that. We've talked about that. You can go do your own homework. Then the retaking of Jerusalem, which happened May 14th, 2018. Ironically, May 14th. There's a sign. And then back to the travel is now global. And that's happening in spite of a pandemic. It might be limited, but that is happening. And then the technological reach is global. And the amazing part of that is just what we're seeing is like what's real, what's not real. I mean, you go to a movie now, there's a lot of, or even what, you have an Xbox or PlayStation. I mean, some of the gaming is so lifelike. It's crazy. And I mean, it's fascinating how we've gotten to that point. And now, what's real on TV, what's not real on TV, and what we see or on the internet or whatever. I mean, it's crazy. So that's why another reason why we do this is not to try to prove or disprove. It's to say, hey, here's the signs. Wake up, pay attention, and if you really take a step back and you really allow God to speak into your life, it's amazing how that discernment level will go up. And you may not fully understand, just like yesterday, I didn't fully understand. I knew one thing, my spirit was shaken. I know yours was shaken. You know, our brother Brian, you know, his was shaken. You know, we talked this morning about it. And I said, what was one takeaway? He says, my spirit was shaken. And then the fifth one, global financial control is possible. And one of the things that I've said all along is, and I started studying end times prophecy in the late 70s, and when I was in high school and in youth group, and we did, the assignment was, okay, what has been fulfilled, what do we have currently, and what do we know that's happening that they're talking about right now, whether it's, you know, in the military, because a lot of things would happen in the military first because they had the funding to use it before the consumers became consumers. And this this is right at about the time too when personal computing was starting to happen, and they were not cheap. I mean, they were much more than what we spend on computers and a phone today. So they were existing, and then they would be huge, huge boxes, little screen,
rooms with a
black
little,
and white, or they were amber or green.
yeah, I
There
remember
was
that.
no color. The dot matrix printers. So the one thing that I said is like, if you believe in pre-tribulation, which is the rapture of the church is gone, so Jesus comes, takes anyone who is saved, and goes to heaven, then there's a 7-year period. Well, obviously, a rapture happens, and let's just say 1 billion people. I don't know what the number is, but 1 billion people are gone. Half of them are awake, and half of them are sleeping, because it depends on where they're at in the world. There's a lot of chaos going on.
Really?
A lot of chaos, a lot of fear. Makes what we've experienced over the last year minor. So then you've got 3.5 years before the Antichrist shows his true self. He shows himself before them, but nobody realizes it's him. Or at least most people don't realize it. But at the 3.5 year mark, he starts to show himself. And we're not going to get into that today because we don't have time. So I was like, all these things have to happen for that to be fully impacted when the mark of the beast is established, fully established, and implemented on a global scale, not just in an area, not in one country, globally. What we've seen over the last year, we've seen record things happen. We've seen things created that were not created. We've seen technology, the use of technology, just like what we're using. And where, I mean, people were like, what's Zoom? Well, the Zoom stock, if you had Zoom stock, it went through the roof. I mean, I've been using Zoom for 6 years. I'm like, get on Zoom. What's Zoom? And then they'd struggle. I don't know how to get on this Zoom thing. So the technology has gone. And then we're seeing, okay, the logistics of all that has to happen. What we've seen over the last year, that can happen. And it may not be fully ready to go. What I do know is that in a 3.5 year period, it could definitely happen with where we stand today. And then the global markets, we're seeing how it really operates, where the average person really doesn't have a shot. They're really, the deck is stacked against them. But a bunch of people got together and said, hey, we're going to stack our own deck. And there's been certain stocks that have gone up in the last 10 days.
I just got 3 words. To the moon. Okay, go back. Back to you, GJ.
Yeah. And then now, you know, cryptocurrency is going crazy, and that's becoming a normal way. Today, it came out that Tesla would, in the future, accept Bitcoin as a form of payment to purchase their cars and everything around their automotive. So that just goes to show that's happening. And cryptocurrency is on a global scale now, and we're seeing that elevate. We're seeing the prices go up. We also see the value of it going up, and we're seeing that people are adapting to it and using it. And then big platforms are starting to implement that. Some have said they're going to, they just haven't implemented it yet. So we know that just because they say it today, it takes time. The thing, what we're saying is the logistics are happening. And I always said everything would have to be able to be fulfilled in a 3.5 year period. Well, we're there. And I'm not saying we're there today, the 3.5 years started. I don't believe that. But we're in that season. And the control, and I've always learned, whoever controls the money controls the game. And it's happening on a global scale.
I think that what I want to point out mostly from what you just said is that as Christians looking towards the end times, we can get lulled into this sense that it's taking a long time, so therefore I don't have to worry about it. I know where I'm going. I'm going to heaven. That's what a lot of people say. So why do I have to really be concerned about the end times? Well, here's the reason why I believe we need to be concerned about it. Number one, because Jesus says to us we need to be watchful. He says we need to be watchful. He gave a lot of parables, especially about the kingdom of God, where he said, if you're not watchful, you might miss it. And so, the biggest thing I can think of is the parable of the 10 virgins going to the wedding feast. And 5 of them actually brought extra oil to be prepared for what could potentially happen in a delay or whatever. The other 5 just brought what they wanted, but they had, and no more. And they were unfortunately not able to go. And just like GJ, I'm not trying to say this is when it's going to happen. I don't know that, but I do know that things can happen very rapidly. And that just because it's taken a couple thousand years so far of end times for us to realize that Jesus is coming back soon, doesn't mean that it's going to take another couple thousand years. And all we're saying is to watch. We're just saying be mindful. Be like the watch person on the top of the tower that's looking in the distance, seeing what's coming. Because you can see these things. They're actually happening, just what we mentioned today. The biggest thing I want to point out to you is that, in the United States at least, we have been very blessed in the United States as Christians to be able to worship freely, move about our business, go to church, volunteer, serve, worship, and all that. But last year, how quickly was that stripped away? Literally within a week, everything was shut down in this country as far as churches were concerned. In a week. Now, it led up that a lot of things led up to that moment. A lot of fear tactics, a lot of things happened to help to kind of prep people for what was going to happen, which is why we're telling you to be watchful. But it literally happened in a week. And then masks. I'm not here to debate with you about masks, okay? I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. But what I'll tell you is that—
We're 6 feet apart, by the way.
Oh, the whole 6 feet apart?
No, we're 6 feet apart right now. Just want to go on record.
We're at least 6 feet apart, at least 6,000 or plus or whatever. But masks, being told that you have to wear a mask, stay 6 feet apart. It took not that long for everyone to just grab a hold of that and lean into it. How quickly could the US dollar or the Chinese yuan turn into a currency that's digital? How quickly could it then be where they could say, well, if you don't use this system, then you can't purchase here? How quickly could it be that Christians could be sought out? We've been hearing a lot of the word, I'm not going to mention what it's referring to, but we've been hearing a lot of the word blacklist in the news media recently for people that believe a certain way. How quickly could it turn on Christians even that if you believe in Jesus, that you are targeted? I'm just saying, these are questions, GJ. These are questions that I want us all to be asking. And I have a couple other questions too that I was reading in Ezekiel last night, which is also another end times book. If anybody really wants to dive into Ezekiel, it's a really great book of the Bible to dive into, just like Daniel and Jeremiah and Revelation and Isaiah. Or Matthew or Luke. There's a lot of them out there. But Ezekiel talks about a vision in Ezekiel chapter 8. I'm not going to read the entire scripture to you, but here's the progress. Here's the progression. He has a vision of the Lord, of Jesus coming down and talking to him, or as it says there, the Lord, the Son of Man, which actually you would know from Matthew that uses that phrase to refer to Jesus. Said, "Look to the north," he said, and beside the entrance to the gate, this is talking about the actual temple of Jerusalem, near the altar stood the idol that had made the Lord so jealous. Now, I believe this is referring more to the end times than it is about what he's seeing there. And Ezekiel says, "Son of man, do you see what they're doing? Do you see the detestable sins the people of Israel are committing to drive me from my temple?" So actually, Jesus is talking to Ezekiel, calling him son of man. "But come and you will see even more detestable sins than these." I mean, right now, just look at last night. Look at all the things we saw that are trying to drive us away from the focus on Jesus and towards the detestable things that we know can potentially destroy our lives. And then he says, "Then he brought to me to the door of the temple courtyard, where I could see a hole in the wall. He said, 'Now, son of man, dig into the wall.' So I dug into the wall and found a hidden doorway. And then that hidden doorway, he saw through that and saw engravings of all kinds of crawling animals, detestable creatures, and he saw various idols being worshipped by the people of Israel." So here's what I gathered from that. And there's more there. We could spend a whole hour just talking about that. But here's what I want you to see is that hidden beneath the surface, that a lot of people that are doing things they shouldn't be doing, like worshiping idols, not following Jesus, not following God, they think they're hidden from the Lord's sight, but he sees everything. He sees everything, and it's detestable to him because the focus is being taken away from worshiping God, worshiping Jesus, and then pushed towards these things that are taking the place of him, but they're hidden. But here's the thing. They're now being brought to light. They're now being placed in front of us so that we can see them. And we can know that it's now it's open to the world to see what's actually happening. And it's being taken away from our focus on Jesus. One thing I wanted to mention about yesterday's events, and that I want to lead us into a conversation about salvation, GJ. So we'll let the Lord speak through us there. But is that the Super Bowl, as well as the Olympics, they're televised, and it converges a lot of people into a certain location. And because of that, the Super Bowl and the Olympics actually become the most human trafficked time frame on the planet at one time. And I'm talking about not just women or men, but children. And this is a very real issue. And so what's happening in secret is not being seen, but you can see through all of the other stuff that's going on, and you can actually see what's hidden in the darkness. And that's exactly what's happening. So we don't want any of you to be hiding in the darkness, by the way. We want you to see the light of Christ, the light of Jesus, which he is the way, the truth, and the light, and he's the only one that's come to take away the sin of the world. And with that, I yield my time. Counselor, I yield my time over to you.
Okay, Mr. Attorney. And for those that don't know, he's in law school. You said you weren't going to go back and talk about the Super Bowl, but you had to. You had to do it. So
I had to do it.
I just got to point that out.
Well, I said I was going to come back to it at some point. I just didn't know when. I thought
it was like 3 weeks from now, and not 3 seconds. Well, and you talk about idolatry. This is actually a form of idolatry. You say, "Oh, no," but I know, and there was a time where I had sports and my teams were ahead of Jesus. And some people know that, and some people didn't. And then I'm like, oh my gosh. I also know that God gives us joy in things that He wants us to be joyous. And the one thing I've had to learn is there's a quote that I might have said here before: is my ego leading me, or am I leading my ego? And then, am I following Jesus, allowing Jesus to be number one, or is I putting Jesus number two, or number three, or number four? And that's a constant question that I think we should all ask ourselves. And even if you've given your life to Jesus, we constantly have to focus on that. So going back to your, it's not about the Super Bowl, but going back to salvation, and even and then say, hey, I'm good. Going back to the thing, hey, I'm good. All right. The one thing that I know why we're doing this is like, I know right now, if I die today, and any one of us watching this could die today, right? Are you ready? Are you ready to go to heaven, or are you ready to go to hell? And hell's live, or is real, and so is heaven. And you know, I hope you choose to go to heaven. So that could happen without any of all the other craziness that we've talked about, or the signposts, or Jesus coming back. You could actually lose your life before that happens. So are you ready? Now, I recently lost my father, and the one thing that I had complete comfort in is that I knew he was right with Jesus, and I knew he was going to heaven. And because of that, after every conversation I had, even though he couldn't even talk back in the end, I just said, it's okay to go see Jesus, Dad. It's okay. You fought a great fight. All right. We know you're a fighter. It's time. You can let go and go see Jesus. So I found comfort with that. So I challenge you today. The other thing is on the darkness. If you're living in darkness, you may be the only one that knows that. As far as humanly, God knows. And God sees that. And you can say, oh, man, that's why I don't want to give my life. I don't want to have to change, or I don't know how I'm living in shame or guilt. God can remove that. Jesus can wash that away. No matter what you've done, you can still turn Jesus and you can still go to heaven. Every single one of us. And we've seen a lot of evilness in the last 24 hours or symbolism for that. And there's a lot of things watch any newscast, read any news article, whatever. There's a lot of evil going on. And you reference children and trafficking. That is on a global scale as well. And even if you were part of that, to whatever, God can still forgive you, and you can still have everlasting life. So, and what we're seeing right now is a lot of light is being shown on a lot of darkness. And I believe God is going to continue to do this on all fronts, whether it's in the financial sector, whether it's in the government sectors around the world. When you have 7 or 8 governments that are falling apart all at the same time, there's a sign.
There's a sign.
And then when you've got people that are saying, let's unite, but only if you agree with me. Well, none of my friends, and including Dan, we will not always see eye to eye on every single thing. The one thing I do know is what we do see is what unites us and what brings us together. And because of that, we have a loving, respectful relationship. And even if we disagree, we can agree to disagree. I don't know what that is with me and Dan. What I do know is that when you start looking at what truly unites us, that's what matters. And the other thing is, one of the things me and Dan have built our relationship is he shared stuff that he took some risks. I don't know what his views on this is, or and it might be a whole different perspective, but he was vulnerable and shared it. And what he found out is I was actually on the same page. Now, if we weren't, we would have said, hey, maybe there's something to this. The one thing I know right now, I don't know what I can believe on all fronts on so many things. What I do know is I can believe in Jesus. I can count on Jesus. I see it every single day, and in so many ways. And I'm so thankful for that. And God sees that with you. And God put in you a purpose. God gave you a calling. And even though you may not be living that calling, maybe you stepped away from that calling, I get that. I did the same thing. Is that God can redeem you no matter what. And it may be a process. Me and my wife had a conversation today, and she actually said, she was like pointing out that I was being a little prideful on it. And I was like, okay, I didn't want to hear it. I'm not saying that she was right. Okay, she was right.
I was about to say, you got to recover that one, man.
Yeah, hopefully she doesn't watch this one. I don't think she's ever watched any of these.
She lives with it, just like my wife. She lives with this all the time. She doesn't need to watch
Yes.
this to hear it.
Yes, exactly. I've already saw that. I heard that. And then she goes, "Oh, that's how I sound." No, you don't sound like that, but that's what I want to say. That's what I'm thinking myself. I'm thinking myself. I need some light. Uh, there was a time that I definitely walked away in so many ways, and I became numb. So a lot of stuff that we've seen and we talked about probably wouldn't have fazed me at one point because I was so far away. And even though I wasn't doing a lot of bad things, I was still under that spirit, that blindness. And it is a process. So no matter where you're at, it is a process. And I've said that no matter what you're going to do, if you're going to move forward in life, it is a process. And for where I'm at today and being able to do what we're doing right now, there's a time there's no way I would have been able to. There's no way I've been able to articulate any of this. And there's no way I was willing to be vulnerable, let alone is that care. I mean, to really put it out there. So God's grace and healing and forgiveness can have impact, and I'm seeing it in my own personal life. And you can say, "Oh, that's great for you. What about me?" You have that opportunity, and I don't have it all figured out. We don't know where this is all going. There's times fear, kicks in. It's like, "Oh my gosh, this could happen," or whatever. What I know is I find peace amongst the chaos because I know Jesus and God, our Almighty, our Father, is in control, even though we cannot see it or feel it in all things that we do. So with you, you have that ability. And, all you have to do is admit that you're a sinner, because we're all sinners. Admit that, God is Jesus is the only way. And we talk about, being united. The only thing that we can say that you might not agree with is that we believe 100% that Jesus is the only way to God the Father. And if you don't believe that or agree with that, then we probably are going to be on two sides. However, I got friends and people that are that way. I have family members right now, and I had this dialogue with my brother, and then we'll close here. My brother knows about the tribulation on that. He said, "Well," and I said, "There's people in our family right now. I know that if they died right now, they're not going to heaven." And I said, "That bothers me." And I said, "I'm hoping that Dad, and this for Dad passed, that people can start to pay attention and maybe think about their salvation, about what happens if they die." And of course, some of them are younger. So, when I was in my 20s, man, I'm going to live forever. And, 50 years old, that's way down the road. Well, next thing you know, where was 50? and so I said, and he said, "Well, some people are going to have that opportunity in the tribulation." I said, "If you understand the true tribulation," I said, "there's a lot of pain there, and you're probably going to die an ugly death or die from stuff that is unrelated to, any control." And then I said, "What about if you're in the car with me and I go and I'm driving, and I drive fast, by the way, and if I'm driving and all of a sudden I'm not in the car and the car's going to do what? It's going to crash. And if you're my passenger and you're not saved, you're going to hell." It's that blatant. So my brother and I had that conversation, and he goes, "I never looked at it from that perspective." Now, I believe my brother is saved. I believe my brother's going to go to heaven. And but I know I have family members that are on the fence or on the other side of the fence. And I pray for them almost daily by name. And if you're watching this right now at the 58:45 mark, God put you here for a reason. God's like, "Hey, what can you get? Or what can you be forgiven? What can you change? Or who do you know that you need to pray for in name, in spirit?" That's what this is about. It's about paying attention to what's going on without getting sidetracked and then going a different path because you don't want to deal with it or it's crazy. So with that said, acknowledge that you're a sinner. Acknowledge that Jesus is the only way to the Father. And then asking Jesus into your heart, and he can change your heart. He can anoint your heart in a way that is probably beyond what you can even think of, because I know that's what's happened to me. Now, I still have my things I got to work on. Sometimes I'm a little hard-nosed, and I got to soften it. I get that. But I'm really good about having people around me that are good, like Dan. Dan's one of the nicest guys. My wife says all your good friends are nice people. Dan, Brian, Jerome, I mean, Lester, I mean, uh, I got a whole group of people that are around me. My buddy Fitz. I mean, they're nice guys, and they soften my non-niceness. Now I'm typically a nice guy, but I can come across hard, and that's just a lot of them, the military, and it's the competitive guy. But God can change whatever that is, and I see that, and I'm still in process. So I'm going to turn it over to Dan to pray for you, and you can state this prayer yourself. You can say it along. I'm not very good at following along with it. That's just I don't have that. I have. My wife said you have a learning disability. Okay, you're right. I do. But I surround myself with people that don't have that inability.
I have learning disabilities in a lot of areas.
Whoa! I gotta get a new friend.
Well, hey, if you're out there and you're listening to this at this particular time, and you're feeling that check in your heart, you're like, hey, I want to say that prayer. How do I do it? You just have to, in your heart, you can say a prayer just like what I'm about to pray. So let's do that now. Lord Jesus, I admit today that without you, I have broken God's law. And God's law was very clear when it was set out that you desired certain things from us to be able to have a relationship with you. But none of us could meet that expectation. So Lord, you sent your son, Jesus, who's the only way to you, to come to this earth, die on a cross, to be crucified, and to die, but not to stay dead, but to be raised to life. And that's what we believe, that Jesus, you were raised to life. And because you did that, now all of us that have broken your law can then be made right with you by accepting your forgiveness after we've admitted that we needed it. So we admit today we are in need of your forgiveness. We believe that you came as the Son of God, died on the cross, died and rose again so that we could have a relationship with you forever. So Lord, we accept, we believe, and we confess those things to you right now. Make me new and continue to change my life from here on out as I become more like you with every passing day. In Jesus' name, amen. You know that there's probably
hallelujah. And now it's like, boop.
That's right. There's a party in heaven right now with a lot of people that are accepting Jesus at this very, very moment. We are praying for all of you. We believe that God's going to do a great thing in your life. And there probably is a church somewhere by that speaks and preaches the gospel of Jesus. Make sure you find yourself in a community of people that believe and can help strengthen you in your walk. So God bless you guys. We will see you next week. Stay watchful. And then, as I always like to pop up, oh no, wait. Here it is. Here it comes. Here it comes. Here it comes. Boom. Pray, prepare, protect. And I added a fourth one. Proclaim the gospel. I should have had that from the very beginning.
I like that.
Hey, there you go. God bless you guys. We'll see you next week.
All right.